taught them a lot, and they just reversed it on us, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. That's why looking to Indians or this or that for an answer is...
Okay, brother.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much to do with looking to anyone.
Let me hear you, brother.
Sorry,
I know you.
I don't think it's so much looking to any particular group as an example to better ourselves. I think it's just a case of what's good is good and what's right is right. And just to back what she said, what the Indians were doing, they were being practical about it. When they were being attacked in their estates, they were gathering together and saying, you know, we're repelling them. As much as that sounds violent, it's probably not the right way to go about it. But that's what they were doing. They have a practical solution for the situation as it was at the time. The problem I think we have as black people is bringing it back to that African and Caribbean thing and various other islands in between countries in Africa. We're very separate as a people. We don't really see ourselves as black. We call ourselves black collectively, but we're the only people that we're really black, but we kind of cuss each other in between, like, you're African, you're this and that. It's a whole other argument. But you have to kind of see ourselves as not separate like that. We have to come together.
I mean, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Sorry.
I refer to. I'm gonna.
That's what I talked about, coming back and looking within ourselves.
Yeah.
To answer that.
It's kind of like,
if we look in our history and looking back to ourselves,
that's that too.
we was united, and they segregated us. They
Absolutely.
now we need to look to another people for the answer. Look within ourselves.
You're not looking to other people for the answer.
One second, please. Sorry, I know it kind of gets. You see, this is that's why I said it again, because from the documentary or mockumentary, they did this thing whereby they made it seem so because one was from an island that they even took from Africa in the first place. I'm just saying that is where our parents grew up with this West Indies and Africans is different because on the documentary, but when it came to the Asians, they didn't do this Istanbul, Pak or wherever their lands are from. They deliberately done this division so that we saw ourselves as different. So that's why I'm saying that has kind of grown in and manifested in us today. Do you understand what I'm saying? Go on.
I'm just going to say, I think we're sometimes a little bit too sentimental and we're not practical enough. It's fair enough saying we need to look within ourselves, whatever, I totally agree. But we have to be more practical. The situation as it is now, we're very, very separate as a people. So it's all good and well saying we need to look within ourselves. Who is ourselves? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Are we Africans? Are we Caribbeans? Are we going to stay separate? Or are we going to come together?
Please, brother. One second.
I know it doesn't, but just for the sake of argument.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, sorry. Did you finish your point?
Yeah.
Alright, did you say something, Baptist? Behind? The guy in the red jumper?
No, sorry, go.
What did you say? Have a hand up there? Hello, behind the red jumper? Did you have a hand up there? Did you have a, okay, no? Alright, go on fire, brother.
Yeah, you see this thing of looking at Asians, a lot of us don't actually know that there's such a thing as Anglo-Asians, which are half white and half Indian. Yeah? They're let into this system and they have places like where I grew up in Wembley, Ealing Road, for a reason. There's a reason. It's not, you have to understand that the people that have the continent Africa, or the descendants of Africans, were seen as the biggest threat if we were allowed to have economic power. There has been times when blacks have come together and had economic structures and Europeans burn it down. Yeah, they don't see that we're the biggest threat. So when you say like how the Asians get together, some of us have beaten up white people many a times when they come with racist things, because it's not even 90s they were going on with that. And some of us used to go and beat them up. Simple. It's not just Asians that were doing that. They see us as the most. You heard the guy say it in the bus for a job for a conductor. We're so seen as to react as the most violent. They fear us. The way they react to us, if some other race reacts that same way, is much more brutal. That show you don't need to look far for that. When they come to arrest our kids and whatnot, the way they deal with us is totally different the way they deal with them. So we need to not look at Asians and say Asians this and Asians that. Asians haven't been treated the same as us. They have not. No way near them. If you look on the statistics, the amount of black men that have been killed in jails, you can't even compare the Asians to it. So a lot of times, that's what I said, that's what the documentary does. You watch it and you start thinking, oh, the Asians get treated the same as us. No race on the earth has been treated like us in any country.
Okay, go on, sis.
Yeah, and I mean, I went to my doctor the other day, he's an old retired doctor, and he was just talking to me. And you know, and when you speak to old Asian when you speak to old Asian people, they will tell you how grateful they are to the West Indians, because it weren't really just them like forming groups, beating up people. It was the black people protecting them, and that's why they classed themselves as black, because they were, you know, they were getting protected by the black people. And the difference, like, yeah, they're an example and they kind of stick to who they are, but the difference between them and us is they know who they are, you know? Yeah. Every Asian child speaks one of their native tongue. How many of anyone in here speak anything but English? That's right. That's right.
I was just
going to say about segregation, you know, Asians, I don't think, I live in a whole heap of Asians, and even though we mix, they don't always look at themselves as black. I hear people go into mosques, black people go into mosques, Asians don't want to stand next to them, they don't want to sit next to them, they don't even want them in there. So I think you have this varying degrees. I think with the youngsters, they're forming allegiances, they've got the same kind of subcultures and etc. In terms of the divide between the Africans and West Indians, I think one of the first ways to get over that is to start marrying in together a bit more. I kind of find when relationships are happening, a lot of, I'm not so sure about the West Indian side, but I know from my own experiences with some African people that they don't always want you to marry into their culture. You understand? They say you're different, but really true, we're not different. And if we started to marry more, all we start doing is merging back. And that's really what I think we need to do, is bring the youngsters back and get them up.
It's hardly surprising that so many whites today have curious misconceptions about blacks, for they're founded on centuries of bigotry and distortion. From this depth when Britons first sailed around the dark continent, explorers brought back turtle tales of exotic monsters on sea and land. Sheer variety of beast and man puzzled them, and by the 18th century, European philosophers and scientists came up with an explanation, a theory that fitted not so much the facts as their beliefs. They placed everyone on a scale of creation that fitted their understanding of the world and of God. Naturally, they placed themselves closest to perfection. Those whose skin was black, therefore, had to come second on the scale, somewhere between white Europeans and the apes. And they could rely on the greatest philosophers of the age of reason to come up with convincing justifications.
The main difference is, I hear what you're saying about we shouldn't look to another race to find ourselves, but I think the main difference with Asian people, and not just Asian people, Chinese people, people from that part of the world, is when they came over here, if you go into Chinatown now, they still do their traditional thing. Asian people still, and you know, as you quite rightly said, they still speak their Hindu or their Sikhs or whatever. You'll go into the home, they speak very, very fluent English, but they'll speak very, very fluent Punjabi and things like that. I mean, you know, I'm a classic example. My eldest sister speaks Yoruba, I don't. And that's, you know, and I'm a classic example of where my parents, both of my parents are Yoruba, born and bred in Nigeria. You know, can't get any more African than that. But I don't speak Yoruba as fluently as my sister does. And that's the problem. Where people, you know, we've decided to dumb down, we came over here, we didn't bring our culture with us. We felt that we needed to embrace the English culture to fit in. And we had this idea that we always, everywhere we go, we have to fit in. We don't have to fit in. There's nothing bad with standing out. Standing out doesn't always mean it's a negative thing.
You're always going to stand out anyway.
Exactly, just from the colour of your skin, you're always going to stand out. So why not embrace that? And that's the problem.
What's this?
Can I just say, you know, as adults we realise that, yeah? Again, my parents are both African, they're from Sierra Leone. I can speak the language, but I don't, I choose not to. Okay, but as a child, it is that fitting in. You want to fit in, you stand out, you know, you go to school, do plaits, oh my God, I wish I had, you know, permed hair, I wish my hair was straight and stuff like that. So we get that from childhood, the wanting to fit in. It's a natural thing for a child to actually want to fit in with society. So, and again, it's like a catch-22 situation, because as a child, you want to fit in, so therefore you take off what is naturally yours. Then when you get older, you're like, well, hold on a minute, I'm lost. Who am I? Then you try and find, you know,
is that the parents? Because you're supposed to instill pride within you, who you are and where you come from.
Of course you are. Of course you are. But then you've got the home, and then when the child goes out, you've got the society, and then you know you're I grew up here.
That is that you get older.
As you get older, it's only as you get older, because as a child you want to be like thingy. Even though your mum says, you know, back home we used to do this, back home we used to do that, and everything like that, and you see it. You know, your uncles are there, your aunties are there. You're eating African food. You know, you're embracing your culture at home. As soon as you step out of that door, it's a whole different game. So as you grow up, you're like, well, who am I?
But where's that come from?
Sorry. Let me just grab the guy at the court here. Mr. C over there.
Basically, I believe the same thing that was said earlier with regards to spirituality. I think that's key and it's paramount. I also believe that it's a subconscious method that we all have to learn and teach our children, simply because I think we've all experienced some sort of institutionalized racism, whether it be today, in workplaces. I was born in East London, and basically before I came over to Brixton, and before I went to school in Brixton, I noticed a big contrast. It was a big difference, and I used to live right next door to West Ham football ground. And the way how it used to be was that whenever there was any sort of games on, any of the ethnic children or black kids, and which we were a minority because predominantly is an Asian community,